Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio. This is your host James, and I'm delighted to have my returning guest today, Mr. Gerald Clark. And as the audience knows, we are doing a series of podcasts, and if you're tuning in to the podcast for the first time with Gerald, there's a history of shows there to catch up on, and you can do that on the Gerald Clark playlist on capricornradio.com on YouTube as well. But just before I bring Gerald on, we are doing a conference in Mexico, a symposium, and but the purpose of ascension, the purpose of knowledge and insight. And Gerald and I will be doing a 2-day seminar with a little group visit to the monuments as well. So you can check that out on geraldclark77.com. And without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi Gerald, you're very welcome to the show.
Hey James, it's really terrific to be back with you. I'm really excited to pick up back where we left off.
Yeah, it's like a meeting of the minds, Gerald, and I get so much out of these shows because I love the knowledge and I love the background and the depth of research that you do, Gerald. And I know we took a break for the last show on Nibiru, which was fantastic, by the way, and it's getting great hits. And what a body of research you did for that, Gerald. Nice to take a break from the Emerald Tablets. I know we're coming back to them today. We're going to do Emerald Tablets 6 and 7 from your book, which is Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. That's what we're focusing on for this podcast. I'm really feeling excited, Gerald, because we're getting somewhere, and this has been like a journey for us too. Do you see that as well?
I do, and because of the topics in Tablet 6 and 7, it goes right to the heart of what's going on in society today and some of the profound issues that the Nibiru status report brought up, and facing your fears of transition. Those get addressed in these two tablets, so I think it's very timely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is the thing, Gerald. A little confused at the start. I went, Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. What's this got to do with the Anunnaki? Why this change in title of the book? Gerald was doing this Anunnaki book, and now he's doing this Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. But I get it now, Gerald. The more I do every show, the more I get it. And this is about rising, Gerald. This is about ascension. This is about knowledge. And it's about this mix of spirituality, history, technology, our origins, civilizations, and it's all in there in the one big mix, whether we like it or not. And this is what we're trying to sift through, Gerald.
Well, you said that really well. I don't know if I could have said that any better, but the reality was I saw the Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising as a direct extension from the question that got asked by many people: if the Anunnaki genetically modified a Neanderthal to create us, then who created the Anunnaki? And, that goes right to the heart of, who's this creator, God, whatever label you want to put on this intelligent force that manifested all matter and put us into the state we're in? A deep, deep question. Who we are, where we come from, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, when you realize that one of their Anunnaki progenitors that was a benefactor to mankind, and that was Thoth in Egypt, that was Ningshita in Samaria. This was Enki's premier scientific son, second one born after Marduk. Well, he turned out to be a interest carrier for Thoth, so that's why I chose him to tell the Anunnaki story that not only exposed how you were enslaved, but what the way out was. And that's what we're trying to focus on. Yeah, we kind of got ensconced heavy in the Emerald Tablets, but there's a lot more to the book than just chapter 5. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll get to that.
And we'll get to that, for sure, Gerald. What I love about the shows we're doing, Gerald, is there's so much information in your head that I just love, because it's coming out, and it's coming out in a very beautiful way, and that's what I'm trying to do on these shows, is to get that out and deliver it to the public, because there's just so much more behind what you've done in the book. It's prolific.
Well, you said something on a radio show, and I hope I didn't interrupt you. Just the other day that I listened to you, you described yourself as a systems engineer and an analyst. Well, I played that role many times as well, and I have this particular problem, I guess you could say, where I don't like pieces. I want to see the whole piece, the whole picture, in order to make the best decisions at wherever I am in the simulator. And I learned this as a military pilot too. It's a situation awareness issue that humans have. Mm-hmm. And as a system analyst, you try to be aware of all the things that are affecting a system. So you're trying to develop a meta-awareness. Mm-hmm. Well, I do the same thing with everything that I do. And it turned out on this Anunnaki thing, I had to stew on it for a very time too. And it's not fully put together. I mean, they have occluded who they are and what their role was, so that when you're operating as a force in secret, you can be far more effective than you can when you're out in the public.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you don't even know where to go to attack the source, right? That's causing either good or ill. So operating in secret is a very powerful thing, and we're going to talk about what they did in the Emerald Tablets, both light and dark, and this idea of facing darkness in our paths. Yeah, everybody kind of goes, yeah, I'm having a rough day or whatever, but listen, in this tablet, he makes the idea of this struggle, this warfare between light and dark, very real, and nobody is exempt.
Wow. Let's just, for the audience, we're going to do two tablets today, Tablet 6, and in the second half of the show, Tablet 7. Tablet 6, The Keys of Magic. If that wasn't an illustrious title, if ever there was one, Gerald, The Keys of Magic. What is this magic? Let's get into this, Gerald. Let's go into in deep.
Well, like everything else that Thoth does in the Emerald Tablets, he presents it to you poetically as a scientist, oftentimes using multiple repetitious sequences of different symbols to try to get it through your thick skull, right?
Sure.
So he titled it The Keys of Magic, but so the first thing to think is, oh gosh, there's all these incantations in here, we got to make some pots of witch's brew and all. No, not at all. So, first of all, you got to ask yourself, what is magic? Magic is advanced knowledge that you don't understand. So, anytime somebody does a scientific breakthrough or something that's not known to the rest of the world, well, it's magical until everybody else understands how it works. I'll give you anti-gravity, for instance. That's magical. Only the UFOs can do that. Well, if you knew the secrets of overcoming gravity, well, you'd have that magic too. So the idea of redefining that term is what I want you to think about. So this tablet starts by setting this historical background. Way back, it turns out to be the inception when these avatars, remember 32 of them came down with him to assess the state of the planet, realizing everybody's enslaved in darkness. Well, this is kind of a continuation on that. So this historical background. He talks a little bit about this emergence of darkness and the warfare with the light. And it goes all the way back to the very first days of man. Well, which genetic offspring are they talking about? The one that the Anunnaki did to the Neanderthals, or were there others? Right? Because some of these beings state that they had forms of being a man, and they ascended, and now they're playing these various roles as light beings, avatars that had in the past being a manifestation of matter as a man. So that's trippy. Anyway, so this battle is depicted as age-old, and he says it crosses all cultural boundaries and appears in various forms. So whatever culture you're in, the evil you're experiencing might be unique to your culture, but it's still evil, or darkness. He just calls it darkness. So look at how many movies and archetypes we have that have to have a hero overcoming darkness. This has been around for a long time.
It's in everybody's mindset, Gerald. It's in everybody's mindscape, the duality, light. And you always find that people pretending to be light, and the dark ones are not really that dark. They're probably just, being misunderstood, and it's a mix.
Yeah. Well, we even have these archetypal symbols in our Hollywood movies. Even in the science fiction Star Wars, with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they're fighting with a lightsaber, light fighting the dark. It's all over the place. So it's been around for a long time. So maybe we'll probably dig into it a little bit more about who's on which team and why. I mean, that ought to be the first thing. And go, what's the discrepancy, right?
Sure.
Yeah, speaking of discrepancies, I noticed one thing in these tablets that Thoth in the previous tablets indicated that he was born on an island in Atlantis. Maybe that means it was another incarnation. But at the same time, we see that he shows up in the Numa Elish, and he's also related to Enki, shows up as Hermes and Thoth. So it gets a little confusing to me when he says he was born in Atlantis, but then he arrived on Earth in an age-old time along with those avatars. Remember in the previous tablet?
Sure.
So he showed up with 32 avatars, and with him made the 33rd one. So anyway, I thought that was a point to bring up. But he says the battle was age-old and was already in motion when they showed up. So that's an interesting thing. So where did these dark forces come prior to this intercession? That's something interesting to think about.
The Atlantis discrepancy is important. I mean, there's discrepancies in a few things, but there's also similarities too, Gerald. And like we mentioned just before the show, that, Norse mythology, Irish mythology, Greek mythology, if you want to use mythology as a label, that is, the similarities, but then there's discrepancies. It's the same players though that are behind all this though, Gerald. This is the same, and I know you use double names like Hermes Ningshide.
Right.
Which I think is
actually one of the ones I know we were talking off air about, and I'll bring it up real quick. I got confused after reading that Thoth was an Atlantean. He was born on the island of Undal, and then this must have just been an incarnation, right? So I'm trying to follow this through, but then you follow through to the Greek society, the Greek culture, where he had this major battle between the Olympians and the Titans. Well, the Titans were the Atlanteans, and they were portrayed as this awful, terrible subhuman race that was just the destroyer culture, right? Which is totally not true. But so I started thinking, well, if from the Sumerian records forward, we started seeing this rewriting of history,
demonizing as well,
Bible and various cultures, and Enlil was usually at the helm of that. So here he was, the chief deity is Zeus in Greece. What's to make you think that he didn't do some rewriting of history there too to serve his ends? Well, one of the instances that came to my mind was the concept of the caduceus. Well, there's a story in the Greek mythology, if you want to call it a mythology, where Hermes was on the Olympian Council. Well, here we know Hermes was Thoth. So we're like, wait a second, what's he doing working with Enlil, the destroyer? How does this work? Well, in their account, he was born of Maya Majesta and Zeus. Well, she was actually the wife of King Atlas on Atlantis. So all of a sudden you see these Enkyites crossing bloodlines with the Enlilites and having avatars. So in that story, Hermes wanted the caduceus from Apollo. So he supposedly tricked him into trading him the caduceus for some musical instrument. Well, if you think about it functionally, in a way, Hermes was taking back his role as a healer and as a geneticist from Apollo, who then received the entrainment capability of the frequency of music so that he could use that as his enslaving technique. Listen, we both know music is oftentimes used for mental entrainment. Oh, yeah. So it was very interesting if you thought about it from that side, from a functional trading of capabilities. Well, so all of a sudden you're going, wow, so was Hermes really on the council? Did this really happen? Or is this just a way of describing how he tricked Apollo into getting his functionality as a geneticist and somebody who was helping mankind from a lower level of consciousness to a higher one, which the caduceus represents?
Music is a hypnotic effect for sure. I just want to say, Gerald, there is anybody who rewrites history. They do it for an agenda, because they're not rewriting history just to change a few facts for the fun of it. They're rewriting history because, they're changing history. They have an agenda for doing it. And often when you see the same people turning up, we know they're the same people. We know there's cross links between all the different mythologies. It's the same players, but we either find that the story gets changed. Somebody gets demonized, or somebody gets, blamed for something and where they weren't before, and somebody gets, put into the wrong role, or so. Some of the facts stay, but some of it gets twisted, and that's the thing to point out.
Yeah, it's almost like watching a historical soap opera, and really sometimes when you look at it very closely, it seems to almost be scripted to play out these antagonistic roles, whether it's light and dark, or somebody who's an enslaver, or somebody who's a good shepherd king, just comparing and contrasting the functional roles of these advanced beings relative to themselves, and then ultimately with us to each other. And I think there's a lot of lessons in there about learning about what we are as a spiritual being, having a material experience. It's part of our evolution in the simulator. So I think a lot of this light and dark, listen, Thoth even told us that light and dark are both allowed by the creator of all.
Mm-hmm.
So they're playing roles. You know, the creator and destroyer sitting and playing chess to each other, betting $1 whether this one's going to win or that one's going to win.
So dark magic's there whether we like it or not, Gerald.
It is. It is. And these dark forces, he describes them as, coming from another dimension, probably meaning another race or of beings from another dimension that have been called in by mankind in their stupidity, basically is what he says. And he describes them as being able to be accessed through certain rituals, which we described before. Mm-hmm. And it usually involved, Thoth described it as the rituals that were accompanied with the blood. So usually when there's a blood sacrifice in some ritual, these beings were accessible. And I think that's the same ones he's talking about. Now these same ones, according to him, way back then, formed secret societies that operated stealthily. And like I said before, when you operate stealthily, you can be far more effective than if you're out in the open where you can be a target. Enslaving with darkness and blinding the soul. So basically their idea was to be here on this planet. Any beings that were here that were not in their inner circle, they wanted them to be their slaves. And listen, we knew that all the way back from the Atrahasis in the primitive worker account with Atrahasis, Enki, and Enlil, when after 600 years it got out of control. So we saw that going back way back in the Atrahasis as well. So they were doing it. These beings were doing it as well. So when you put two and two together, you'll realize that the Dark Brothers were headed by Enlil himself.
You know, I think a lot of people don't understand the economic slavery of our planet, the first world, the second world, and the inception of the third world, and keeping those third worlds in place by perpetual wars. And when I think everybody sees the economic slavery game now, the debt slavery, what goes on, and all the bankers, and they've no problem accepting that now. It's not that big a reach now to extend that to slavery of the soul, or slavery of, at least blinding people so that they can't see their way out. I think that's the clever aspect that you brought up there, John, to blind somebody so they just can't see their way. What better way to...
Exactly. So Thoth accuses them of negatively affecting our dream state, putting destructive thoughts in your mind. Now, if you go look at the functional role for one of these cycle masters that we talked about, and the first one I have to recall was Untanas, and you're going to hear him in the sequence or the process that Thoth says that we can all use to bind the Dark Brothers from our lives. Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, there's prayers, but now he's talking about real beings that have real influence over these. So and we'll read that one later, but that was his job, was to shut down your first chakra. In other words, to cooperate with the dark forces to keep you enslaved in darkness. Now, you think about it as a child, when you're young, you don't have the consciousness to hardly do anything but figure out, where you're going to live next and how you're going to make your way. So the idea of working on your evolved consciousness to be aware of what's happening to you as young is ridiculous. So we're so easily ensnared, is what I'm saying, in the illusion of matter through the dark forces and how they work. And then it's a multifaceted assault on your perception, your skewed perceptions. You're easily fooled, is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, we don't have signs above their head saying we are dark operating agents.
No.
If we did, it would be great.
Not only that, think about how long it took you in your life to differentiate whether the thought you were having was your own or some influence that felt like it was coming from the outside. That takes a lot of, personal awareness and thinking, having a meta-awareness to monitor your own thoughts.
I think
most people, once a thought turns into something they accept, it leads to an emotion, and then it's theirs, and that's where it ends. It never gets tested at the beginning. So what he's telling you here is, if you're so easily enslaved by your perception of the illusion of your senses, that we should be testing all the spirit of the beings that we encounter to avoid their ensnarement. Of course, now we got TV and radio and everything else blasting you from everything. So it's not just crossing somebody along the street. It's every form of input that you get.
Wow. I got to jump in there. For me growing up, Gerald, I was very blessed because I was always taught, be independent. Be independent to your own thoughts, to your own goal, what you want in life. Follow who you are. You know, and this wasn't just a random couple of statements to me when I was a kid and I go away and learn that. It was repetitive, education and awareness. You know, be your own person, follow your own dream. And it was drilled into me, you know, so I was never given that chance to, because don't forget, the governments they'll all give you your answers for you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the idea that the government is running in America, it runs the National Education Association that all schools are funded by. Well, that means they have control over all the curriculum. They absolutely don't want you to be responsible for your thoughts, or do any of this we're told about. Okay, so they just want you to conform and go along and be a good slave, and learn what to do and what not to do to be on the good graces of your next big parent, which is the government, right? You grow up learning to appease your parent to make them want to love you and give you what you want. Well, they just extend that one step further to your employer and the government, and they keep treating you like that, you know, with these people who are unwilling to go beyond the group think and say no to something that's A, immoral, or B, wrong, but the rest of everybody's doing it, so it must be okay.
Here's something very cunning, Gerald. I mean, we see this in Europe play out into an America, for example. We in Europe, especially Ireland and the UK, can be very patriotic to our country, but at the same time dislike our government. And when I say dislike our government, probably hate our government, but we don't see that as a problem. It's quite acceptable in our society. But in America, especially maybe other countries, maybe Canada, I don't know, but if you dislike your government, you're not patriotic. And patriotism and government is two different things as far as I'm concerned. However,
yeah, I wanted to I'll talk a little bit about it. Any issue that a human could be riled up over to defend, protect, and take up arms and die for probably needs to be examined. And I'll give you a for instance here, okay? In a book I was given some time ago called The Territorial Imperative, there are primal forces in all beings, human beings, that mimic what goes on in nature, whether we like to acknowledge it or not.
Sure.
One is the need for identity. One is the need for territory, so you can get your resources and gather food and all that. And the third is stimulation. Well, the need for identity means that who we are is connected to that piece of dirt over there. Well, that's not true if you think about it from a spiritual standpoint. Who you are is irrespective of where the dirt is. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's a old method to rile up nationalism and patriotism to cause one force to go after another one, in my opinion.
Wait and hear this, Gerald. I got to tell you this. This is, I have to bring this up. I watched Russia Today during the week, and there was a news clip on. I couldn't actually believe it, Gerald. There was a woman in New York who had some sort of a business. I think it was health and beauty or something. And the name of her shop was called ISIS.
Oh, I did see this. Yeah. Well, remember we talked about this namesake smearing?
Yeah. No,
look at what's going on. It's terrible.
Just for the audience, Gerald. Okay. So the woman has lost 40% of her business. There has been people ringing her up. She named it after the goddess Isis in ancient Egypt. But, this namesake, this, Islamic group with the abbreviation acronym, which is I.S.I.S. You know, it's an acronym, not an actual name, but it's in their head. And I mean, I just can't believe for a moment that there's some person out there harassing this woman because the name of her shop is called ISIS. And they're ringing her up, giving her abuse, saying stuff like, you know, do you know who these Islamic people are? They're beheading people. And do you know who you're supporting these people? You know,
I saw that. Well, the reality is that name came from the Israeli State Intelligence Service. As a smear against ISIS, in my humble opinion. And, you know, it goes on and on and on. Well, listen, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was Enlil. And and for him to acknowledge our true creators, Enki, who was Poseidon, his son Ishita, who was Thoth, Hermes, Mercury, and many other names, and the mother of all humanity, who was none other than Ninhartsog, Isis, to me is his way of saying, I don't approve of the primitive workers that you three put on this planet and now have 7 billion of them. And as far as I'm concerned, you're smeared, and I'm going to wipe them out. And that's what's going on. And dark, it's facing light in an ultimate battle right now.
I just want to draw a note on the story, Gerald, is that people are enslaved, like you say, by this perception illusion. It's given to them by the state. Hey, hate everything to do with ISIS, and as a result, there's a mindless population out there just reacting like robots, and it's a sad state to say, but I just can't believe that they're so successful so quickly with this, Gerald. And it's not good. It's not good, and it's not hopeful for the future. But I know me out there, I'm sitting like going, how could anybody do that? I just at the opposite end of the spectrum, and I just feel sorry for some people out there that they actually do that they have no thoughts of their own, and to do that, have you any grasp of even, I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling that they can be enslaved so quickly like that.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Kristen just a little while ago about some of the technology that's been around, I've been exposed to, and the idea that you could take an advanced computing system and set up a massive neural network that could be trained with all different inputs. Oh, here's the people's response to a sale at Walmart. Feed that database. Here's their response to a beheading. Here's their response to a train derailment. All the things that are being shown to people in a neural network can be trained up. Once you have that database in this huge neural network, you can expose a what if to the input, and it'll give you the output as a predictive measure. So they've been using software to do this for a long time, gathering data from your cell phone, from your Facebook, all this to build a picture of every single one of us so that they can simulate this in a neural network to basically have an anticipatory input to know when the people are starting to get a little ruffled under the feathers for being pressed too hard as slaves. Okay, so it's this dynamic world simulator, and actually we looked it up today. I won't say it over the air so we don't get cut off, but we have that, and it's been around for a while. So think of it as the all-seeing eye in the synthesis room, so that you can simulate a volcano going off over here and see what all the people on this side do where they go over here, or a disease, or anything else that you want to imagine that you could simulate to see how the slaves respond.
I reckon
when you have that kind of tool, you can play some very sophisticated false flag games and all kinds of stuff to drive the mindset where you want. So all of a sudden you got this woman who has a hair and nail salon that is losing her business because the CIA are barbarians to influence foreign policy, smearing an ancient Anunnaki goddess's name. Now you just think about that.
I think
that's just messed up. That's just messed up.
It is messed. I think this false flag, social experiments, is exactly what they are, to see how people react, what they can do with them, and make it happen for real in a different way. It's a massive psychological social experiment to see what they can do and get away. There's a big warning here. The beautiful thing about Emerald Tablet 6, Gerald, is we have a warning in here how to avoid this ensnarement. Let's talk about this, Gerald. Let's talk something positive.
Well, before we go on to that, we ought to connect the dots with the last show. Well, no, let's go on to that. You're right. So I had something prepared for you, and I'm going to pull it out here real quick. Hey, Kristen, would you hand me that wealthy notebook that had that poem on the back? I actually, back in, I think it was 2004, I was sitting and thinking about this very next point that Thoth brings out, where he says we're given guidance to be responsible for our thoughts, examining them before the negative ones become our own. Mm-hmm. So and this really impacted me for some reason. I must have been at the place where I was just waking up to learn how to be responsible for my thoughts. I don't know. But I read something, or somehow it came to me, that fear is nothing more than a belated announcement of a thought you accepted as your own. And the emotions that go with that. Okay, do you hear what I just said?
Say again.
So
Jeff.
Behavior, we say, no, it's not connected to your thoughts. Well, that's BS. Just watch a couple little boys, age 5 or 6, watching, I don't know, Daffy Duck or any of the cartoons that have so much violence in them, and see if they aren't out, in the yard trying some of that on themselves. Mm-hmm. Especially the little fighting ones where they watch the little martial arts ones. That really gets them going. So the idea that thoughts don't lead to behavior is ridiculous. So with that said, I wrote kind of a poem. Actually, I was going to share with you. It's only about 10 lines that had to do with the state of mankind relative to our thoughts.
Oh,
so
wow.
try this on if you're okay with this, and we'll.
Go for it.
And,
go for it, bro.
I'll see if I can do it justice.
Go for it.
Remember, this was written in 2004.
Okay.
Mankind trapped twixt destiny and fate. For destiny is determined, but it is we who choose our way. Attune therefore the energy, beckoning one and all. Judge not, for beauty abounds, purging fear's constraint. Less truth, oft rejected, destiny's lot to seal. A path that leads to where we hope to find the courage to break out of the square. Pressed by time, energy's threshold sought, the test to pass is wrought. For behold, the final conflict rages, our battleground of thoughts. That was it.
Wonderful, Gerald.
This is absolutely, for me, it was like, okay, let's talk about that. You get something in your head that brings a concept, an image, a thought, something to you that you call a thought. Well, where did it come from? Part of it is from your contextual memory that already exists, that where you burn stuff in the past. So you see something that's familiar, and it could bring up a thought, oh, I recognize that, like that. But at the same time, if you've built green, garbagey highways in your thinking pattern, here pretty soon he's going to tell you, you got to deal with that before you get stuff coming from the outside. Mm-hmm. So now we're talking about external influences that could be affecting your thoughts. What about, we just said, Utantas, his job was to ensnare your mind and your soul with darkness so that you can be trapped in the first chakra and have to work to get out. So all of a sudden you realize, hey, my thoughts are really a part of me getting out of this trap. So becoming aware of them is part of it. And he gets into that, how to deal with some of this, because there are times when you're involved in stuff that go beyond your thoughts. You're not creating your own reality. Some of it's external. As much as you like to think you're creating your own reality and you're a solipsist, that's not true.
Mm-hmm. Wow. When I was younger, Gerald, I read a book called Awareness by Anthony de Mello. It's actually a Jesuit priest, but he didn't write it as a Catholic or Jesuit book. He just wrote it as an awareness book, if you will. I'm no fan of the Jesuits either anyway, but wonderful book. And awareness is a very, very unusual thing to describe. It's how do you describe it? How do you give it to somebody that doesn't have it? How do you make them see? It's a bizarre concept to talk about to somebody who doesn't have it. And when you have it, you see the people that don't have it. It's like you have an operating system that they don't. And that's the best way to describe it.
I know we did this once before and talked about awareness being, the scope of awareness being tied to the energetic quantized states of your consciousness. So if you're in your first chakra, you can only be aware of certain things. Well, in your sixth chakra, you'll be aware of different things. So that they superimpose upon it and gives you a meta-awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So energy in my mind and consciousness affect the scope of awareness. And then you can go back to some of the other interviews I've done where I talk about an AI concept where the reticular activating system is involved in helping the human prioritize what to be aware of now, and it's usually tied to your survival. So this is your situation awareness mechanism for prioritizing what to be focused on right now. And they're usually very sensorial related, not so much on your thoughts as your touch and your smell and your sight, those kind of things.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, he tells you if you can be responsible for your thoughts, the first thing, and he gives you a little ritual with this. He says if you recognize darkness is enveloping you, you're having a bad day, something's going wrong, check and see if it isn't your thoughts coming from internal within you first. Mm-hmm. And if it is, he tells you to banish the thoughts and then to use a vibratory frequency, probably some breathing mechanism to just clear your energy state to reinforce the pattern that's in your cortronic network in your brain where you've stored this pattern to help rid yourself of it. Because if you keep repeating a thought process in your mind, it keeps reconnecting the neurons and it stays. Whereas if you can see it for what it is, at one point go, oh, that's a thought where I'm having road rage and this is how I'm acting. And you just come without letting the emotion get involved if it's possible. At that point, if you can catch that, you can make it go away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an Eckhart Tolle principle of being here now, is if you can be here now, not building a picture of what's happened in the past and telling yourself a story continuously, and just being present with what is now, and that includes your thoughts, you can overcome that.
Wow. You know, if we were all just individuals living in nature, out doing our hunter-gatherer thing, we would only have to deal with natural information out there to help out to live in the wilderness. But our territory is the world of information, and it's been subjected on us in a negative way, either through movies or governmental structures, each one individual. You know, is it harmful? Is it? Who knows? There's a mixture of harm and good in there. And this is the
family,
world. This is the world
school,
we're in, whether we like
parents, education, peer groups, you name it. All of it has been designed to shape your thoughts and your behavior to be a submissive proponent of the state's agenda. And now it's getting bigger beyond the state, and then it goes to the federal. Now it's, now we're at world level, where the New World Order wants you as their slave, and they already own you.
I like that little practical step, though, Gerald, just to cut yourself off from it, take a deep breath, clear your energy, get some breathing, know what your own thoughts are, know whether you're connecting those neurons, know what, because your neural path, and I know that myself. I looked at neurology of the brain, that there's this triple mechanism. The memory goes down a neural pathway 3 times before it's burned in forever. The first time, it's a random neural pathway. The second time, if it's a similar memory, it will try to go down the same neural pathway, and then if it differs, it will make another little connection at the end. But your brain's memory is just like a spider web of pathways, and once
Well, imagine it's full of chaos and war and trauma and pedophilia in the news, every other form of fallen thing. This is all in your neural network, so it doesn't take much to trigger something that comes up that's negative, right? I mean, that's what it is. So you've got to unplug yourself from the negative influences as well. Yeah, you're not being an ostrich and putting your head in the ground. Occasionally you're going to check in and see what's going on in the world, but you're going to do it from a consciousness state where you're at a meta-awareness, and when you see this stuff, it's not going to cause the emotion of fear. Understand?
Yeah, that's the important point. Don't ostracize yourself from the world out there. It's easy for me. I just turn off the news anyway. I only turn it on to catch up sometimes, or see something that I see on the internet. But yeah, I have limited what I watch on the news, because it's all just, it's a filter that I have up. But definitely don't ostracize yourself completely. Be sane. Take in the information just that you need, and gather your thoughts. I mean, who does that, Gerald? I mean, it's become something that you have to put in your arsenal as a defense, as a weapon or a firewall, to have this mechanism. And it's something that you just got to do these days, because this is the environment that we're in.
Yeah. Well, I think later in the tablet, we're going to talk about what we determine to be the ultimate truth. Is it somebody telling us something, or is it something that we feel internally? And ultimately, it comes down to us determining the truth internally. So you get exposed to all of this external influence, reviewing your own thoughts that might have been burned in your head like green garbagey highways. When you recognize that, you need to go through some deprogramming with that. But all of this, we have to be responsible for. So, did we choose to be exposed to all this negativity? No, it's been thrust on us intentionally. So it's part of the enslavement. So now we have to be just as responsible to get ourselves unenslaved. And the first one's dealing with our thoughts. So I want to repeat what I said about thoughts once more, because there's a nugget in there.
Oh, yeah.
Behavior is nothing more than a delayed announcement of a thought you accepted as your own. There's the key. You can have all kinds of thoughts coming in, but to accept one as your own means it's going to turn into emotion somehow, some way. You're going to own it, and it's going to turn into behavior. So you got to get to the place where you're reviewing what's going on in your head and can say, I accept that one and I reject that one. And when you do that, you're on the final battleground to start really accelerating your path to light. But that's required because of the skewed perception illusion that everybody is in this. The Mayans call it the illusion of Maya. And in Thoth's writings, he calls it the illusion of Ka. Well, we're talking about the perception illusion of the external world as our interpretation is reality. It's not.
Wow. Yeah, here we are talking Emerald Sabbath 6, the Keys of Magic, and we're talking about the quest for light and truth, Gerald. This is all good stuff. This is applicable to today, if more than anything.
Exactly. And this next one, now suppose you had a bad thought, you tried yourself to differentiate it, not accept it, keeps coming back. You don't know how to do this frequency thing that he's talking about in order to let, the universal energy, the life energy flow through you and clear yourself. And people in Reiki and stuff are really experts at understanding how to attune themselves to this.
Yeah.
And Qigong experts and Tai Chi masters and people that understood human energy in the body in different cultures. Okay? Well, if that fails for you and you're not that far along, he gives you a bulletproof method to clear your path. And this one I absolutely love because I wasn't at the place when I first discovered this, and I've used this one so many times, it's practically memorized. And this is where somebody would look at this and go, oh my gosh, here's where the magic ritual comes in, and this is where all the demons are showing up, right? Well, just read what he says. He talks about the names of the 7 cycle masters that are here controlling our planes of existence, okay? Trying to help us. And the ritual involves you standing and addressing them and asking them firsthand to intercede to get the darkness out of your path. Now, where are the demons in that? Because they're calling out the names that coincide with the Bible is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably.
Mm.
But as you and I both know, these names, they're functionally allocated to the 7 chakras. And they tell you that in the tablets. These are the guys that are controlling the quantized levels of awareness for your existence in this thing we call life. These are the guys. These are the entities that Thoth defers to, that Poseidon deferred to even when he went to battle against the dark forces that caused an imbalance to the earth. These are the ones that control it. They're controlling the wobble cycles relative to consciousness. Okay, you with me? So this one, when you get to this level, and he tells you, if you do this, know that the results are assured. That's how confident he is when he tells you this. So, in my path, I've noticed that when things got really bad, this is the one that I would glom to. When I couldn't differentiate the thoughts in my head as my own or external or whatever, this cloud of darkness that, how it sometimes envelops you. And it just almost makes you depressed. You just want to climb under the covers. And you don't know why.
You know what the wonderful thing is?
Part of it's an external energetic source that's a false Merkaba field designed to keep you that way.
The wonderful thing is, Gerald, that when you attain this, what I call it a skill, or I call it something that you should have, but okay, whatever reason, you gain this later in life, as you say, this awareness, this seeking of truth. And if you were able to differentiate between truth and subjective experience of all this dark information or enslavement or manipulation of the truth or manipulation of perception, and if you're able to differentiate that as soon as it happens, in other words, you see the truth for what it is in an instant, well then that is an incredible skill to have, because you are in that driving seat for the rest of your life. You're in the driving seat for destiny, Gerald, for your own destiny.
That's how consciousness works. Once you go through the gate of awareness, there's no going back. You have the burden of awareness at that point, and now you have to be responsible. So that's it too. It's ever increasing missions that you get as a function of your consciousness. So the more conscious, the farther along you get, the more complicated the task you're probably going to be involved in.
How many people out there don't know what their destiny is, Gerald? I mean, how many?
I would say, according to Drumvala Melchizedek, with his numbers on 0.01% of the people have probably only activated their Ba field, which is the one that overcomes the illusion of Ka. And this is various ways can be done. He gives you the Merkaba meditation to do it, which I'm a big proponent of. But I'd say definitely less than 1%. So, the Illuminati are talking about eliminating 95 to 97% of the people in order to meet the first commandment on the Georgia Guidestones of 500 million.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you can see that that's very possible because the people that are taking ownership of the Ba, light, sun, soul that was given to them as a birthright, as an inheritance from the light beings that created us, there's going to be a small number of them if they don't start waking up and taking responsibility for this gift that was given to them. Now, everything possible has been done to occlude the awareness of and the knowledge of how to take control and possession of that gift that was given to us. And that's why all this perception illusion and all the, the religions and all the things that don't focus on that, that's why. These dark forces want you to be their slave. They don't want you waking up and having the power. By the way, this last process that Thoth gives you for alleviating darkness from your life, not only does it call out the names of these cycle masters, but he says, guess what? You can do it for your brother too. And know this, that the knowledge of that is so powerful that those dark forces will come after you. Mm-hmm. So once you get to this level, please do this, because it's real. It's a spiritual warfare that's going on, and these guys can be avatars out of their bodies. So
I'm glad that it's a spiritual warfare. That's the territory we are in today, is spiritual warfare. This isn't, a perpetual war.
Always has been.
It always has been, Gerald. Yeah, it always has been, and that's the more accurate way of saying it. It always has been a spiritual warfare. We just only become aware of it in a group conscience or a mass conscience, or able to talk about it on shows like this, Gerald.
Agreed. And a lot of people are very confused about how to get out of it, and that's why I wrote the Seventh Planet Mercury Rising. Because once I asked myself the question, okay, well, who created the Anunnaki? They told us the creator of all created the Anunnaki. That's what Enki said in his writings. Mm-hmm. And he venerated the creator of all and wrestled with the idea of fate and destiny and doing genetic experiments to augment their mission and the whole thing. Okay? He's like, well, I was given this intelligence to do this. Does that mean I wasn't supposed to do it? So just having the knowledge and then actually doing something with it brings you to the next level of evolution. Well, should I do that based on the specifications of the way to live based on these light beings that came here? And these are the deep kind of questions you got to ask yourself before you go kick off another missile program that's designed to kill people.
Sure. Well, Gerald, what we're talking about here is so valuable, Gerald, and I love the way you're explaining this and synthesizing the data that we have, because don't get me wrong, I'm on the side of truth all the time, Gerald. Whether people are seeking it or have it, or they're not sure, or I'm not sure, I'm still seeking it and wanting it and looking for it and associating myself with it. And there's people out there, what I call, quote, truthers, and I don't mean that in any derogatory aspect. I mean, I would call myself a truther if I had to, but they use the name even in the media, truthers, like it's a derogatory thing. Anybody into an alternative concept or seeking truth is like a bad thing. They say it in a derogatory sense or whatever. But the point is, me included, and I've fallen into that trap very, very young, that, just because you're seeking the truth doesn't make you a diplomatic immunity to these dark forces. And I see people in the truth game, Gerald, being manipulated by these dark forces just because just
continuously, yeah.
Just because these people who are dark say, quote, I'm a truther too, and that's okay, we're all in this truth business together. And even in alternative radio, Gerald, there is a massive onslaught to control it and manipulate it and change it.
Yeah. Well, don't you and I know about that firsthand, brother?
Oh, yeah, we got some that we do, Gerald. But the point is, what we're talking about here is some actual practical knowledge, some skills or steps to understanding truth for what it is in a very psychological, base level, spiritual ascension way, for all of not just lies that's in the media, Gerald, but for all of humanity, to seek these basic innate skills that we should have and should be able to achieve. We should all have this.
You mean those ones that were written in the Handbook of Life you were given at birth, so you knew how to get through the simulator?
The one where they ripped the page out?
Yeah, they burned the book before you ever showed up. But, as far as truth goes, I wanted to talk something about that. That you can be theoretical and experiential at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yep.
So that you pragmatically try a hat on through this hillbilly levels of learning that we described previously, so that you can come to your own truth. Because ultimately, truth is a pathless land, and it's only true if it's true to you.
Wow. Gerald, coming up to the top of the first hour, have we got some points to wrap up on before I play Tablet 6?
Yeah, I would just say I want to re-emphasize that little ritual that he tells you to stand in darkness, in a dark room, in a circle, raise your hand, and say those words he tells you to say. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you something. I want to challenge anybody to do that that's a scoffer of this knowledge and see what happens. Try it. I dare you to try it. Because guess what? He says, don't just do this, but do it for your brother too, because they don't deserve to be in darkness either. Wow. So do it for them if you don't do it for yourself. Just try it for somebody else first. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It works. Wow. It's powerful. It's one of the most powerful things. Call that the magic, if you will, is the knowledge that there are 7 beings living in the halls of Amenti, surrounded by the avatar, change cycles to do whatever on behalf of mankind and for thought.
Sure.
So there's dark out there, but there's light brothers also that can go to war on your behalf. So use them.
Wow. I think the point is, though, as well, to wrap up, there is duality out there, whether you like it or not. Dark and light, good and evil, black and white. It's always going to be there. Don't fight it. Understand it. Be aware of it. And involve yourself in the side that you want to involve yourself on. I'm thinking most people...
Well, I would say do fight it. He says don't turn the cheek to evil. He goes, take on the tools that I'm giving you and make it disappear. Anytime you shine light on darkness, it's gone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it is kind of confrontational in a way that he's not telling you to pick up a weapon, but he's telling you the spiritual weapons to use in your path.
Sure.
Which is very deep knowledge.
I mean, don't fight it as in without intelligence, and fight it in an intelligent way, I should say.
Yeah. Well, you always have to trust and verify, and he tells you don't shun your brother, let them talk to you, but you've got to very quickly distinguish whether they're a dark being disguised as light, and so trust and verify very quickly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I guess I would leave it with that. I suppose we'll play the text for this. I think he does a really good job of telling the story, and it's very profound if you listen to the words.
Yeah. Like I say, I just find Tablet 6 very valuable, Gerald. Very, very valuable, especially for this day and age.
Yeah. This one is so timely right now. Definitely. Because listen, they're pouring darkness on. The Illuminati is pouring darkness on to push the negativity level to what they believe 95%. Well, there must be a reason for that in this light-dark war. Maybe that's to draw the light forces in to see the polarity of how bad it can be and then how good it can be. Maybe that's where we're headed. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll play out Tablet 8 and then we're going to go to break, Gerald, and then in the second half of the show we will go to Airborne Tablet 7, and of course you can catch today's author at geraldclark77.com, catch out his blog there, and let's listen to Tablet 6.
Hark ye, O man, to the wisdom of magic. Hark the knowledge of power forgotten. Long ago in the days of the first man, warfare began between darkness and light. Men then as now were filled with both darkness and light, and while in some darkness held sway, in other light filled the soul. Aye, age-old is this warfare, the eternal struggle between darkness and light. Fiercely it is fought all through the ages, using strange powers hidden to man. Adepts have there been, filled with the blackness, struggling always against the light. But others there are who, filled with brightness, have ever conquered the darkness of night. Where'er ye may be in all ages and plain, surely ye shall know of the battle with night. Long ages ago, the sons of the morning descending found the world filled with night. There in the past began the struggle, the age-old battle, darkness and light. Many in time were so filled with darkness that only feebly flamed the light from the night. Some they were, masters of darkness, who sought to fill all with their darkness, sought to draw others into their night. Fiercely withstood they, the masters of brightness. Fiercely fought they from the darkness of night, sought ever to tighten the fetters, the chains that bind men to the darkness of night. Used they always the dark magic, brought into men by the power of darkness, magic that enshrouded man's soul with darkness. Banded together as in order, brothers of darkness, they through the ages, antagonistic they to the children of men, walk they always secret and hidden, found yet not by the children of men. Forever they walked and worked in darkness, hiding from the light in the darkness of night, silently, secretly using their power, enslaving and binding the souls of men. Unseen they come and unseen they go, man in his ignorance calls them from below. Dark is the way of the dark brothers travel, dark of the darkness, not of the night. Traveling o'er the earth, they walk through man's dreams. Power they have gained from the darkness around them to call other dwellers from outside of their plane. In ways that are dark and unseen by man, into man's mind space reach the dark brothers. Around it they close the veil of their night. There, through its lifetime, that soul dwells in bondage, bound by the fetters of the veil of the night. Mighty are they in the forbidden knowledge, forbidden because it is one with the night. Hark ye, old man, and list to my warning. Be ye free from the bondage of night. Surrender not your soul to the brothers of darkness. Keep thy face ever turned toward the light. Know ye not, O man, that your sorrow only has come from the veil of the night? I, man, heed ye my warning. Strive ever upward, turn your soul toward the light. The brothers of darkness seek for their brothers, those who traveled the pathway of light. For well know they that those who have traveled far towards the sun in their pathway of light have great power and yet greater power to bind with darkness the children of light. List ye, O man, to he who comes to you, but weigh in the balance if his words be of light. For many there are who walk in dark brightness, and yet are not the children of light. Easy it is to follow their pathway, easy to follow the path that they lead. But yet, O man, heed ye my warning. Light comes only to him who strives. Hard is the pathway that leads to the wisdom. Hard is the pathway that leads to the light. Many ye shall find the stones in your pathway, many the mountains to climb toward the light. Yet know ye, O man, to him that overcometh, free will be he of the pathway of light. For ye know, O man, in the end light must conquer, and darkness and night be vanquished from light. Listen, O man, and heed ye this wisdom. Even as darkness, so is the light. When darkness is banished and all veils are rended, out there shall flash from the darkness the light. Even as exist among men the dark brothers, so there exist the brothers of light. Antagonists they of the brothers of darkness, seeking to free men from the night. Powers they have mighty and potent, knowing the law the planets obey. Work they ever in harmony and order, freeing the man-soul from its bondage of night. Secret and hidden walk they also, known not are they to the children of men. Ever they fought the dark brothers, conquered and conquering time without end. Yet always light shall in the end be master, driving away the darkness of night. Ay, man, know ye this knowing, always beside thee walk the children of light. Masters they of the sun power, ever seen, yet the guardians of men. Open to all in their pathway, open to he who will walk in the light. Free are they of dark Amenti, free of the halls where life reigns supreme. Sons are they and lords of the morning, children of light to shine among men. Like man are they, and yet are unlike, never divided were they in the past. One have they been in oneness eternal throughout all space since the beginning of time. Up did they come in oneness with the all-one, up from the first space formed and unformed. Given to man have they secrets that shall guard and protect him from all harm. He who would travel the path of the Master, free must he be from the bondage of night. Conquer must he the formless and shapeless, conquer must he the phantom of fear. Knowing must he gain of all the secrets, travel the pathway that leads through the darkness, yet ever before him keep the light of his goal. Obstacles great shall he meet in the pathway, yet press on to the light of the sun. Hear ye, O man, the sun is the symbol of the light that shines at the end of thy road. Now to thee I give the secrets. Now to meet the dark power, meet and conquer the fear from the night. Only by knowing can ye conquer. only be knowing can ye have light. Now I give unto thee the knowledge, known to the masters, the knowing that conquers all the dark fears. Use this, the wisdom I give thee. Master thou shalt be of the brothers of night. When unto thee comes a feeling, drawing thee nearer to the darker gate, examine thy heart, and find if the feeling thou hast comes from within. If thou shalt find the darkness thine own thoughts, banish them forth from the place in thy mind. Send through thy body a wave of vibration, irregular first and regular second, repeating time after time until free. Start the wave force in thy brain center, directed in waves from thy head to thy foot. But if thou findest thine heart is not darkened, be sure that a force is directed to thee. Only by knowing can thou overcome it. Only by wisdom can thou hope to be free. Knowledge brings wisdom, and wisdom is power. Attain, and ye shall have power over all. Seek ye first a place bound by darkness. Place ye a circle around about thee. Stand erect in the midst of the circle. Use thou this formula, and you shalt be free. Raise thou thine hands to the dark space above thee. Close thou thine eyes, and draw in the light. Call to the spirit of light through the space-time, using these words, and thou shalt be free. Fill thou my body, O spirit of life. Fill thou my body with spirit of light. Come from the flower that shines through the darkness. Come from the halls where the seven lords rule. Name them by name, I the seven, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9. By their names I call them to aid me, free me and save me from the darkness of night. Untanas, Quertas, Chietal, and Goiana, Huertal, Semveta, Ardal. By their names I implore thee, free me from darkness and fill me with light. Know ye, O man, that when ye have done this, ye shall be free from the fetters that bind ye. Cast off the bondage of the brothers of night. See ye not that the names have power to free by vibration the fetters that bind? Use them at need to free thou thine brother, so that he too may come forth from the night. Thou, O man, art thy brother's helper. Let him not lie in the bondage of night. Now unto thee give I my magic. Take it and dwell on the pathway of light. Light unto thee, life unto thee. Sun may thou be on the cycle above.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio. This is your host James, and I'm delighted to be talking to today's author Gerald Clark. We have been battling through some heavy-hitting shows. Don't forget they're all in the playlist for you to easily find on CapricornRadio.com on YouTube. Or you can go to the Capricorn members page and subscribe for the MP3s if you like and you want to go that method. Of course, you can check out today's author. You'll find everything Gerald does there, background information, and he's got an excellent blog there as well. You can also check out his latest document on Nibiru, which super fascinating and well researched and very enlightening with the knowledge pertaining within. So back on the line with me, Gerald.
Yeah, I'm back with you.
Great.
Hey, I wanted to take this minute just right up front, and I want to talk to all of your listeners and my listeners. Mm-hmm. Listen, James is spreading information to the point where people are stealing it from him. So please support him by listening to his show, subscribing to his Capricorn Radio, and really support him.
Thank you, brother.
Please.
Thank you. I give as much of it as I can for free, Gerald, but yes, I can't devote my life to doing something without making some sort of money to eat and live and travel a little bit to do the things I need to do. But thank you for that, Gerald. I really appreciate that. And yes, I have been battled for 3 days with copyright fraud. But I'm surviving. Yeah, Gerald, I just wanted to plug in your websites there to get people there to go and listen. I know you do a lot of background information on what you do, and that's wonderful. And it's very easy for me to get complacent and just do the shows with you and enjoy them, but I have to do that. But here we are, Gerald, back into Emerald Tablet 7, the Seven Lords.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Let's get it straight to it, Gerald. Let's launch into this one.
Well, we left off with Thoth encouraging us to use all the armament tools that he called magic to fight off the dark. And Thoth encourages us to keep seeking light through our dark paths, recognizing that there's dark poured on your path, and it's coincident with where you are in your chakras. So don't forget that. Mm-hmm. He also tells us that all is created based on order and light, which emanates from the eternal source. I like this one. He calls it the infinite brain. I know. And then the very next point he brings up is, oh, by the way, we're told that even infinity itself changed far in space. Now, there's something.
That's a mind bender, Gerald.
Infinity is going to change at some unprescribed point in future time. He tells you that later as well, expounds on it a little bit, as he's having a discussion with the Seven Lords, and that's what this tablet is named after, is these cycle masters who say they came from beyond the space-time, where they were formless, from the great void, and each one having their duty, their function in controlling certain cycles. Now, when I see that and realize that multiple times I've affiliated them with the Hindu gods that are controlling the quantized levels of consciousness in your chakras, I go on to say, most likely, they're controlling the signal amplitude, phase, and frequency of the composite energy allowed at each chakra. Mm. Now, how would they do that? Either using an external energy field to shut you down or to put you in a life circumstance where you don't access those. Either one would work.
Wow.
And so you think about that and go, wow, that's kind of terrible.
Sometimes
this first cycle master, his job is to make sure everybody starts out enveloped in darkness.
I do this when I'm on the shows, Gerald. I stop and I still ponder again. I've listened to the audiobook. I read the book. I've tucked the knowledge in several times, but there's so much to it. And when I listen to these Emerald Tablets, Gerald, Anunnaki of Nibiru, not Monday, Gerald, but pertinent to Mercury rising, 7-planet Mercury rising, the knowledge that's in these tablets, Gerald, is spiritual, knowledgeable, advanced. There's technical stuff in there. The stuff
you get exposed to it.
The stuff just pertinent to our origins. I mean, I have to keep checkpointing this for people that are just checking in on these shows. I mean, I don't see anything bad in there, Gerald. And they seem to be
some of the most profound knowledge you have. If there was a handbook of life to be written for us, most of this stuff would have been in it.
Yeah,
you know what you were up against from the word go.
And I know there's negative people out there and naysayers, but if you look at the information in it, just look at it. It's spiritual, knowledgeable, advanced, and pertinent, profound. It's about our origins, our civilization, where we can go, what we can achieve. Tell me that's not something worth reading.
Well, how I actually thought about this. I was thinking deeply about whether I should include this Emerald Tablets in my book. It was a big decision for me. I was like, well, it'll take up a lot of the space of the book. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of deep stuff in there, but this is Thoth's deepest knowledge. How could I not present that right now when what we're facing is ascension or destruction? So it was so relevant to me that I thought, and I listened to the other stuff that had been done on the Emerald Tablets on the internet, mm-hmm. and not all of them, but some of them I just found repulsive, mm-hmm. especially after. You know what the ultimate factor for me was on these tablets? Is the way they made me feel after I exposed my eyes and my ears to them. That's our ultimate decider of whether something is right for us in our path. You know it and I know it. And I challenge anybody to read or listen to it, feel it's in it.
You know what, even as the audiobook, Gerald, which is great, and I love that you took the time to personally do your own audiobook, and I know I gave that to our friend Publish of Italy, and he's loving the audiobook at the moment, by the way. So just a little feedback on that. It's great that you took that time.
Perfect. Yeah, really great guy. Thanks for introducing me to him.
Yeah, and I'm glad that, that you took that time, Gerald, because to hear an author talk about their own audiobook, and it's great because you can come back to the Emerald Tablets, you can be lazy, you can have them read for you, that's great, but you just can't kind of sit down and just want to read these all in the one day.
I know. You have to. Well, he tells you almost to make a religion out of it, to keep reading it. He tells you right at the beginning, you got to read this 100 times.
It's like an encyclopedia, Gerald. You don't read an encyclopedia from start to finish, A to Z, and go, that was great knowledge in there. You don't do that, and I just want to put this out to the audience because there's a format there. There's a list of tablets. Each one tackles something very, very pertinent to us as human beings, that our very essence. And like you say, we're in this spiritual warfare game at the moment, and the stakes are high. It's ascension or destruction. And take each tablet, look at it in its own merit, each one, do it by section if you have to, and come back to it. If you don't get it straight away, come back to it. You'll get it.
Yeah. Well, there's something else that kind of comes out in this. We started talking about the models of this order of reality that's been created for us, obviously intentionally, and we called it a holography, and then connected it briefly, you'll see, to the current models of parallel dimensions and string theory. So when you see that those are connected with exactly what he's saying here, our scientists are just now catching up with them. So here's what he says. He says, "For know ye that which is formed truly is formless, having only form to our eyes." In other words, it's a false perception, the illusion of transient matter. How many times have we been told this? Yet we pound on the table and we throw back the beer and we go, we want the blue pill, not the red pill, right? Right from the Matrix. I want the illusion, not the reality, because the reality is sometimes hard to swallow.
Isn't the Matrix movie, Gerald, just so riddled with all this stuff? I mean, you've got the woman called Trinity, you've got, the red pill, blue pill scenario, the enslavement of humanity. Isn't it so pertinent to what we're talking about?
Well, you start to ask yourself, how's it any different than what he's telling you here? Is that, long ago these dark lords came here, set up a system to enslave everyone through various sensory modes, and even at the soul level. If you're gullible enough to throw your alliance behind one of the names that they say is your savior for, or whatever, or your God, then they got you. Think about it like a vote at the end of a zodiacal house. It's a big chess game of the manipulation of these avatars that don't even know they're avatars.
I grew up in a Catholic country, Gerald, and the Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. And I just went, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting myself in the same class as sheep. What do you want me to say, that I'm actually a sheep? And this is what they get. This is what they brainwash people in a Catholic state, like, And
I know, and I don't want to be a Catholic basher, but I do want to say that I was married to someone who was Catholic for many, many years and actually went through RCIA and the whole thing and saw it from the inside out, and had significant problems with the Nicene Creed, saying they had the truth and everybody else has a lie, basically, by saying that. And lots of other inside things relative to that particular Roman Catholic. And you think about Rome. Where do you think Enlil went after he left Greece? He had his signature all over that city, including their religion and their rulership patterns. So, you put two and two together. The mafia came out of Rome. The Catholic religion through the czars came out of Rome, and the papacy came out of Rome. And you still want to subscribe to those people that were throwing Christians in our Colosseum and feeding them to lions as part of our stimulus. Remember we talked about the territorial imperative.
Sure. I subscribe
right?
to...
as long as you pay your taxes, you can be part of the Roman Empire. But and we'll incorporate your religion, right? So you can be nationalistically identified with this terrain, right? So that resolves the territorial imperative. They didn't take their land away. But at the same time, they had to give them some stimulus because now there wasn't the war. So they gave them the Colosseum. This is no different than what, like I've said, the NFL, UFC, all the stimulus that's given to you.
Release mechanisms.
It's required.
Release
it's
mechanisms.
Primitive. So.
I subscribe to a life called James, by the way, Gerald.
Yeah. Well, you walk your own path. That's why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. But, yeah, I mean, okay, let's continue, Gerald. I mean, I get sidetracked sometimes. I have to mention that there, though, because it's the nature of what we're talking about.
Well, now that we kind of did this in the Buru update, and we're talking about the cycles of planets, this next point is very pertinent, where he gives us confirmation that the seven masters, these beings, these ones that came from beyond the void who were formless, okay? Meaning they could take on a form as an avatar, but they didn't start that way. Mm-hmm. That they were planetary cycles. Now think about that. So in other words, how the evolution of consciousness is allowed to proceed as a function of the interaction of various cycles. Now, later in this holographic model that we drew, and I don't know that I've actually talked about it for a show yet, but in that model, he describes 9 lower dimensions, 9 parallel dimensions, 14 lower dimensions, and then the higher dimensions that go through the duat. 2 dimensions there. The dimension on Arulu is the 6th dimension, where he says his ancient home is, that he gave up to be here doing what he's doing, and that 7 and 8 were cycles of chaos, or dimensions of chaos, in the cosmic chaos of creation and destruction. And then the 9th cycle was actually where the creator of all, this infinite brain that he refers to, lives in a circle of light. So and the discussion of light connecting back to this creator of all is epic, because he says everything is formed from light, and you'll see that later. So now we get back to the idea of the properties of light, interaction with matter, and what we perceive to be real. So, this might as well be a philosophy class in nature and reality. It's so profound.
Sure. But this is what we're
actually... Keep in mind this idea of this light that's projected through these limited sensors that you have called your eyes and your ears.
This is a very important word you said there, Gerald. Philosophy. This is a philosophy. If you like it, look at it. If you like it, study it. If you like it, follow it. It doesn't have to be, like you say, a religion. But you can be that if you want. Drum it into yourself if you like it. It's there for the taking, and it's wonderfully laid out in all these tablets by subject matter, and it's got a great purpose behind it.
Yeah, well, I listened to your show the other day where you were talking about how the hedges on the Irish land looked like they were lining to various points in the solstices and the equinoxes, and how they discovered the idea of precession. Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden now you look at these 7 masters of these cycles, 3 through 9, and they say they're affiliated with a function correlating consciousness with a repeating cycle of time. Mm-hmm. In other words, a wobble, okay? Most likely like the great precessional year that's caused by the wobble in the Earth, are about 23.5 degree tilt line, whatever it is now. Probably a lot more than that with our last update on Nibiru possibly tilting us off our orbit. But, this great precessional year, I wanted to bring some emphasis to that. This doesn't happen very often. This is the slippage of the zodiacal wheel, 1 degree every 72 years, like you said in your show. Well, we know that's true. So if it was a perfect circle, we'd be talking 360 times 72, which is exactly 25,920. But people talking about expansion theory and stuff, saying the Earth's rotation due to expansion is slowing, that this precessional wobble cycle has slowed to less than 25,920. I can't verify that, but that's possible. Either way, when you go all the way around a circle and land back where you started, this is usually a time to reflect on things. Like when you're a child and you grew up in this city, and then you went and lived your life in Europe, and then you went back to the city where you grew up, well, you have a very different perspective of where you grew up. Everything looks different, right? It's a time to reflect on the change. Well, that's what's happening right now. We've seen the old world order before, where people are complete serfs, have no rights, and serve only. We've seen different forms of government being, even in our lifetimes, we've seen communism and atheism and capitalism and Marxism. We've seen a lot of different models that we get to look at and go, that was good, that was bad. So it's part of the process of us evolving. Well, since we've seen all that in the information age, and at the place we are in the last stage of the Mayan calendar, which already has gone by, according to Ian Lungold, in October 2011. Well, we've gone all the way around. So add some, go through the galactic center, whatever it is. Could it have been Could we be coming out of it now from 2011 to 2014? Possibly. But right at the apex of that is when we should be experiencing the height of our universal and galactic consciousness. Well, look around in the planet. Isn't that happening? There's a lot of people waking up. They may feel unempowered to do anything about the darkness that's going on with wars and famine and plagues and everything, and weather modification and everything else. But at the same time, this information in the last tablet gave you the power to bind those forces that are doing what they're doing and believe what he said. So I wanted to just bring that point around, is, it's ascension time. Essentially, there's going to be a separation, in my opinion, after the smoke settles and the transition of the Anunnaki Council on rank 50 happens. A new order's coming in, but it's not the New World Order that's trying to assert itself, raising an army of its own and controlling the world. That's not what was intended. Okay? That's the insurgents trying to prevent it from happening.
They're just jumping on the bandwagon.
It's a very special time. This knowledge that are in these tablets allows you the way to participate in the energetic ascension that Thoth told us he's had in these tablets since he wrote them, and has intended to be the pathway for mankind.
These elitist group, if you want to call them that, this New World Order, they're just jumping on the bandwagon, Gerald, for the ascension game of procession. Whether they can get there or not, if they can't, they're going to stop other people getting there. So this is an ascension cycle that repeats, like you say, in that procession, and it's like, it's there. The evidence is there. The ancient cultures all knew this, Gerald.
Right.
And
it's like a vote. If you vote for them, then you belong. You're enslaved in their mob. You take the blue pill. You don't wake up to the truth, and you go on eating steak and drinking your wine and serving the senses of illusion that you have. That's what it's indicative of. That's what it's symbolic of.
And did you
your
notice
senses and your interpretation of those in your mind are not what's real.
Did you notice that in the movie The Matrix, they had to just put that in there, where somebody who would give up all his rights and all his everything to succumb to the not knowing process? The guy who wanted back in the Matrix, he was sitting eating his steak going, I don't even know if this is real anymore. Just put me back in the game.
Yeah, it wasn't just that. He wanted a powerful position. He wanted wealth. He wanted security. And he wanted it easy. He didn't want to have to slave anymore. Well, you're going to see in this tablet in particular, Thoth is going to tell you that darkness is poured on your path. The pursuit is hard, and you got to work for it. So that idea of succumbing to the cultural offerings of the fruits of illusion is really symbolic in that movie, and it's very symbolic in these documents, and telling you that's one of the ways they have held you hostage in the hologram. You get now through these writings to come out of that during the great year. Isn't that a coincidence? Who timed the release of these documents so that we'd be at a place where we could understand them and be doing a radio show on them right as we're passing through the Galactic Center? Think about that.
Sure.
That's pretty good planning.
It's not bad timing at all, Gerald, is it?
No, not at all. So, based on that and that timing, listen, it would make a lot of sense to me that the 7, I call them chakra police.
I love this terminology, Gerald.
These 7 beings that get named in the ritual in the last tablet, they're very significant. And even Thoth pays heedance to them and learns from the 9th Cycle Master about much more advanced knowledge. So, so these beings are even at a higher level than Thoth.
What I like about...
So it makes sense to me they'd be on high alert when we're passing through the place where we're going to reach our highest consciousness. That means number 8 and number 9 are actually going to get some activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if our latent circuits activated by the energy in the GC, the Galactic Center, are triggered like Timothy Leary said, which I think would explain a lot about this time-delayed consciousness evolution that we're seeing.
The model that we're talking about here, Gerald, it makes so much more sense to me. From all the knowledge that I've looked at, it was never a simple, okay, some people came here, they tweaked us, and we were slaved, and we just woke up one. That's too simple a model. It just couldn't happen like that. The way we talk about the latent circuits, how there was a battle to, if they could just have enslaved us to a certain level, like at a certain level of awareness, like 30%, or we want to put a figure on it, and they would have just left us there, they would have done it. They probably would have. They would have tweaked on it, but like that, Gerald, we have this. They were only working with the model that they had, and the model that they had was we were going to ascend anyway with this natural cycles. And what we're talking about here, that these latent circuits will eventually program us to ascend over time and over ascension, is going to happen. Like you say, the chakra plates were on high alert, Gerald, for sure.
Yeah, so that really was interesting to me, because one of those particular circuits that was one of the highest ones that causes beings to reprogram all their other circuits once it reaches that level was this reprinting circuit that he talks about. And that was in Chapter 2 under the subheading, Futons Anyone, in my book. So when that happens, it creates a newly reprogrammed being that's ready to operate in this new dimensional shift. And I truly believe that's what's happening. I mean, I think it's amazing what's happened in the last few years in terms of consciousness.
Yeah. I think, you know what I see more, Gerald, of? I see people becoming more intelligently aware, and I say intelligent, becoming more aware, and then that back feeds into their intelligence, and that makes them more aware. So when I say intelligently aware, it's a double term. And then I see more people becoming more robotic, more brain dead, less aware. I see them going to the opposite ends of the spectrum. And it's people from the middle ground that are going either left, either more dumbed down, or other people are becoming more aware and more awake.
Yeah, that actually shows up in this tablet, or the last one, where he's talking about the variety of the levels of darkness and light. There were masters that were adept at darkness and masters that were adept at light, and they were always at war. So it's interesting to think about this energy at the galactic center that we never really talk about very much. The sun goes through its cycles and is releasing its energy, and the stuff that faces toward the galactic center often feeds the intense gravitational difference there caused by the black hole at the center. And apparently it's like 14 trillion miles in diameter. It's huge, right? So, imagine that spinning, bringing all this other matter around and turning it into this spiral plane that you look at from the Hubble telescope.
Mm-hmm.
And, so now all of a sudden, if a solar system like ours passes through this central band of this dark rift, what the Mayans call it, you're being exposed to higher energy states. And unless we had our Van Allen belts around us, we would not survive that, in my humble opinion. So, some of the chem spraying and everything that's been going on to shield radiation probably had a lot to do with the gamma rays and the other radiation that are coming from this dark rift. And nobody's really talked about it openly at all. Well, in my human antenna theory model, when you get exposed to this other energy that's at the Milky Way center as our planet passes along with our this really heightens the human energy body, which Thoth knew about, and he encoded it in the Mayan calendar. So he's carrying this caduceus representing that very process, encoding it in the calendar. Well, we're just now going through that. And I think that's the amazing thing to realize right now, is we have the opportunity to reach our highest energy state on it.
The Mayans were masters of this knowledge, weren't they, Gerald?
They certainly were. And the level of scientific knowledge that's encoded in their astronomy, it should be very clear now when you realize it came from Thoth, that he was Quetzalcoatl, just as we stated, and so did Sitchin state that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all the symbols are there. You realize that Teotihuacan, right next to the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, mercury was just found in large quantities below the temple. Well, we know they use mercury for leaching out gold from ore, but that's also Thoth's other name was Mercury. He was known as Mercury to the Romans. And he chose that because it's the mysterious liquid metal that an alchemist would know about in the periodic table of the elements. And him being the first alchemist, you should be able to put two and two together. Thoth was Quetzalcoatl.
There is two elements that are so remarkable for their properties, not because of their currency or their weight, or mercury and gold. Gold because it doesn't ever decay. You can and mercury
Check
too.
This one out.
Mercury too.
Check this one out. Do you realize on the periodic table of the elements, one of the metals that was mined, excuse me, that was mined in Atlantis, no longer shows up on that table? That some divers off of Spain, I believe it was, recently said they found at a shipwreck.
Orichalcum.
That was orichalcum.
Yeah, I did
that was more precious than gold.
I did a little newscast on that one. Yeah, that was a really interesting article that surfaced there. Doesn't seem to be much more on that, but they definitely reckoned that orichalcum existed, and it was a metal that they mined, definitely.
Wait till we find one of these breastplates of armor that they made out of them, or a spear or something, that was made out of this stuff, and we finally have it in a museum.
Wow.
Anyway, well, so these 7 cycle masters are here living in the halls of Amente. They're surrounded by this crystal called the Flower of Life that's hitting their whatever avatar bodies they're occupying to renew them continuously in order to be in this dimension. And they've come here as part of the intercession on behalf of mankind to steer us toward our highest evolutionary state. So, this brings me as a scientist back to stuff I wrote in my first book was, well, what is our highest evolutionary state? And well, I think we both as engineers agree that's energy. The amount of energy that you can infuse or synthesize into your material form, wherever it's held, whether you believe it's in the chakras or into the endocrine system like Edgar Cayce espoused, or whether you believe it's in these energetic lines that show up in acupuncture from the Chinese, or whether it's the vortices that are accessed through Reiki, or any other model that you want to choose. These guys were responsible for those levels of consciousness to correlate with the cycles. So the idea that a planetary cycle is related to some timing event in your consciousness is the point I want to get across. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, is that the figure, like my equation 5a shows, what your maximum human energy is? Is this their way of saying, this is how far along you are at this very important time at the great year, the precessional wobble cycle that's just come around? This is the time you're going to get judged, in my opinion, is what I'm saying. And the judgment is an energy assessment based on how much you evolved your consciousness, given all the darkness you had poured on your path, plus all the light beings you had accessible to you to navigate your way out.
Just like the feather of truth.
It's the holographic simulation game. And here we are.
Just like the feather of truth against the weighing of the heart.
Exactly. I know you've said that. I need to go read the Egyptian account again in their Book of the Dead. Very profound. But and the Tibetan Book of the Dead was very similar.
I have that on the
going
shelf
through
there
trials once this happens.
Yeah.
Well, who do you think these 7 chakra master or cycle masters are? Well, every time you this level in your chakras, they're the ones that actually devise your test and assess you. That's amazing to know that.
Wow, I can't believe we're going to be in Mayan territory in September, Gerald.
Yeah, that ought to be interesting. Think
about be in the land of the Maya.
Consciousness that's captured still in those rocks that were built with metal and granite and in particular. So structure is function is energy, right? So when you build things structurally according to an architect, whether it's sacred geometry or what have you, you can build structures that change the experience of energy locally. And I think with some of your research, I know you're probably an expert on that.
I can't believe they found Mercury underneath a pyramid, and I'm like, hello, China, Mercury underneath the pyramid.
Yeah, I know. So you start looking at how advanced you had to be to understand that Mercury absorbs all other metals, including gold, as you're getting it from mines and alluvial sources. Why the gold? Well, then there's the Starfire gold that showed up in the temples affiliated with these people, so they were prolonging their life, amplifying their energy body, and decorating themselves with it too, and maybe spraying some in their atmosphere to shield from radiation. Who knows? But there it is. So it's connecting the dots from Ireland to Mesopotamia to Greece to Atlantis, and all over the world into Asia. They're all connected to the Anunnaki and some of the forces they were battling as well.
Archaeology naysayers going, all these pyramids around the world, they're all so independently produced. It's a natural thing to do is to build a pyramid. It's all independent city-states, all just doing their own natural thing, building up to the heavens, to the gods. And I'm like, sorry, we are now explaining the mercury underneath pyramids in both locations?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think a lot of people sense doom and gloom at every generation. Oh, this is the end times and things. This particular, and you don't have another life to compare it with unless you've gone through regression training, with a therapist to be able to tell. But this particular life for me has been very interesting in watching, almost the two nemesis, the United States and Russia, battling it out. When I was in the military for 7 years, we were brainwashed into believing the behind the curtain of how terrible the Russians were and everything, and kill a commie for mommy and the whole thing, and all of a sudden you start to realize this light dark battle that's going on and the different modalities that they used, from Greek amphitheaters when the Anunnaki were posing as the Olympic god Greeks, to the wars that play out on real stage in front of live news feeds now so the whole world can see it. It's all part of the holographic simulation in this game. And you start to see that when you wake up. I think probably because we're at the highest level of consciousness. I know I was not at that level until just recently, and it was a progression.
Quantum physics says we're in a holographic nature of reality. It says it anyway. Why not put
I know, I think in chapter 10, I got into that pretty heavy when on the tablet 10 when we start talking about time. That was one of my favorites. In Thoth talking about him seeking to understand time. As a matter of fact, I have to give you a little side story. On my Facebook page, I just got a posting from one of my followers. His name's Corey, and he's a musician out of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And he stumbled across me and started following my stuff and watched changes go on in his life when he tried this hat on. He must be an experiential guy plus a theoretician. But he's got a pretty thick filter and a pretty smart guy. Anyway, so he decided to take on this challenge I gave him to set the time, kind of like Hootie and the Blowfish did.
Yep.
But in this sense, from the standpoint relative to what Thoth has disclosed to us in this holographic game, and he took this on and wrote this song called Zin Uru. Okay.
Wow.
And posted it on my Facebook page, so people are listening to this. Go support him and go listen to this. And he actually posted the words up to it as well, the lyrics.
Oh, awesome.
But Zin Uru was in the tablets. She was the Lady of Light that Thoth described being taken hostage by one of the Dark Lords on Arulu. Okay? Mm-hmm. And he actually goes through this ritual that shows up on the Magus card where he puts out a circle of cinnabar, stands there in his certain outfit, and he describes this in the tablets where he basically asserts his right as the the agent of Enki on this planet to succeed on her behalf and bring her back from Arulu. Well, it turns out to be his mother in my genealogy table, okay?
Wow.
She was married to Ningal, who was also known as Metatron, who was the prince of the underworld. Okay, so he was the soul energies in this karmic wheel, and Thoth was able to intervene on her behalf. And he saw this and wrote this song, these cycles of time that he understood by seeing this, and called it Zin Uru. So it's pretty deep.
Do you ever think, Gerald, when they set up camp in another place, like they're in Sumer and they're appearing as these people's Sumerian names, and then they pop up in another place and then they have these different names? Do you think it's just all a game to these guys, that they're just, okay, let's start new identity, new name, let's try and, we'll use some of the old ideas, but we'll change a bit here, we'll have another little experiment, we'll tweak what we did last time?
Yeah, well, they're basically playing the Greek drama game, lessons to the underling slave through their interactions with them through the hologram. So, they architect conflagrations and disparity, and at the same time, they'll have you, if you look closely, and he tells you in this tablet, if you look closely, in the midst of the darkness, there will always be light. There will be some way out, some solution to it that the light offers up. Mm. And it's so interesting, you feel like a pawn on the end of a string that's being shown light, being shown darkness, and for your soul path to basically make one decision after the other at the forks in your road in your life to go this way or that way. And ultimately, he says in here, if you choose to follow the light, you'll be vectored ultimately to the place where you can ascend. That's what this is all about.
Wow.
Wow. And we're at that place. So this implies to me that knowing about these ascension windows, these cycles of time, corresponding to the place where you can get out of the simulator is very guarded knowledge. And it just so happens the Mayan calendar and all their documents, when they are sent by the Catholic Church via the Queen of Spain to go and occupy this area and steal their gold, well, one of the first things, they destroy their culture, including all attempts at the Mayan codices and their calendars. Well, they didn't get them all, luckily.
Luckily enough, only a handful of these codices. I think this is one of the biggest, what the word, I'm going to be non-negative here, but one of the biggest disasters of our history of the planet is the destruction of the codices of the Maya.
Do you think that's worse than the destruction that's going on in Iraq right now, where some forces under this label of ISIS, the mother of humanity,
seeing the stuff,
is destroying Sumerian artifacts, blowing up entire cities, ancient cities that were built by the Anunnaki? Well, so all of a sudden you go, okay, Enlil sending these forces on behalf of the Catholic Church through Spain over to the Yucatan, where Ningshita, Thoth, Hermes, Enki's son is raised consciousness, and look what happened. Cortez and Pizarro, the only two examples I need to give you. And these people in Mexico don't speak the Mayan language anymore. They speak Spanish. There you go.
Yeah. The
So the Mayan culture has been pretty much trashed.
Yeah, I looked at one of the codices in the British Museum the last time I was there. They have a replica of one there, a facsimile of one. I have a little video of it. It's awesome. I mean, just the knowledge. It's because of the level of knowledge with the astronomy anyway. I would say that.
Right.
The level of
that particular one, these cycles of time that the Mayans that gave us, the fact that they had the Tzolk'in calendar that went with us, that showed the ascension of consciousness to go with that, they absolutely did not want you to know that. And here in this tab, he tells you, if you learn the space-time cycles, you too can be free. So what he's telling you, there's windows where you can get out of this illusion of Ka. Okay? Well, we're in that right now. Listen up. We're in that. So, this is so important. So, another really profound little tip, this ninth ruler of the cycle. Now, remember, it was 3 through 9. There were two other beings that were in this 9 that were not accounted for, number 1 and 2. Well, I think number 1 had the 14 underworlds, or parallel underworlds, and the number 2 had the 9 parallel dimensions with our dimension. So those two, for some reason, were not involved in our karma. That's interesting to know. That only 3 through 9 are. Well, one tip he threw out at the end that I thought was really interesting, this chieftain, if you will, number 9, he said that an increase in consciousness is possible for us in this order of reality when two have become one. In other words, when you mix your twin flame, male and female, the barrier has lifted, and then you're allowed it to proceed to grow from the form that you're in to the formless. Now listen, that's what he's saying. You're growing from the form of a material form into the formless as your light increases in your body. And at that point, it's an energy shift, right? Mm-hmm. You can be in the body or out of the body, and we know this as an intermediary. If you're able to experience an out-of-body experience, you know your consciousness, your intellect, your awareness can exist outside of your body. And for people who have experimentally had that, this second hand, you don't even have to question that. For people who haven't, they're watching ghost chasing shows on TV, trying to decide if there's anything beyond this life.
Wow.
And that's how I see it.
Yeah, these, here's the thing. I had all these authors around the 2012 period, and they're all talking about energy shifts, and everybody felt that everybody knew there was something there. All these people were being spokesperson, and then when it passed, they got their book sold, and everybody just walked away from it then. But here I have somebody like you, Gerald, showing and talking about these latent circuits and giving some practical understanding of what this whole shift is, and these ascension windows, and how they can actually activate your ascension in a practical sense with these latent circuits. And by far, this Timothy Leary stuff has been definitely overlooked. It's been a grave disservice to his early research. But we have something very practical and very tangible to look at and understand this time period that we're in, which is still going. It's evolving now.
Well, this is where it kind of gets the burden of awareness and responsibility. Listen, I gave people an equation 5A in my book.
Oh, yeah.
That will give you a number to measure exactly what your energy is, and you see what the maximum is, because we know what the wavelengths and the frequencies of light are at each chakra. They were given to us. Now we have instruments to measure them. So I'm telling you, if you really want to be responsible, yeah, you can measure your telomeres to see how your Starfire Girl's prolonging your life. Great, but guess what? We may not have meant to be eternal in these bodies. What he's telling you is you're evolving with material form into an energetic form, just like them.
Sure. You know, Gerald, I hope I'm not too morbid to say this, but I can just see your epitaph there, Gerald, and it says, "Here lies the man who came up with equation 5A." Sorry, bro.
And they tried to create a grave for him, but he just disappeared into the light. Don't know where he went.
Equation 5A for me, Gerald, is an awesome equation, and I know you refer to it a lot, and it's a beautiful way to take some existing physics and engineering and to understand the human body, the human energy equation, who we are and what we do. And it applies to chakras.
I like this little tidbit that this chieftain gave us, this number 9. He said when two have become one. Now think about that from a superposition principle of you mixing your chakra energy with somebody else who you're on an evolutionary path with. All of a sudden the energy gets amplified. He's saying, ta-da! You could, there's a way out right there if you realize it. Well, now you realize that Thoth was the energy of himself and Isis together as the hermaphrodite, right? Archetypal form. And now they're telling you, here's a way that you can do it as well. So, you know, just based on that alone, it ought to be a good, prelude to the handbook of life that seeking homogeneous relationship with the same sex ain't going to give you the same result as what he's telling you right here.
Sure. Gerald,
that's just me. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just telling you right here. He's saying this one's better, and it could get you out of your illusion of college.
Sure. Joe, we're almost at the other final thoughts there to wrap up on. I'm going to finish out on Emerald Tablet 7.
No, I just note to this little prayer he brings at the end of his tablet, where he's facilitating intervention from the creator of all, which he venerates as well, just like his father did. So, you know, people might call this, well, you know, this is all, they're all fallen angels, and I really hate that when Thoth is included with his father Enki as part of the Nephilim fallen angel theory that the right-wing Christian community has signed up to. That's a lie. That is a lie. So when you read this and see this, you can see that he's working for the benefit of all mankind to try to get us out of our state of illusion. Now, those that want to resist change, don't want to take the red pill instead of the blue pill, he's not going to intervene on your behalf. You belong to the dark forces, and they're going to have their way with you.
Sure. Well, Gerald, I'm going to finish off on Emerald Tablet 7, The Seven Lords. I'm going to play this one out. Of course, you've been listening to today's author, Gerald Clark. You can go to his website, geraldclark77.com, and check out his coming May Ascension Symposium in the Yucatan. Really excited about that one, Gerald. Gerald, thank you for your time today. It's been an awesome show again.
It's always a good show with you, James, because we're spiritual brothers. Whether you're in Ireland or wherever you are, I knew that the day I met you, so I expect nothing less. So thank you for taking the time to make it happen.
Thank you, brother. I'll play out Emerald Tablet 7, and I'll see you very, very soon.
Okay, sounds great.
Harkye, O man, and list to my voice. Open thy mind space and drink of my wisdom. Dark is the pathway of life that ye travel, many the pitfalls that lie in the way. Seek ye ever to gain greater wisdom, attain, and it shall be light on thy way. Open thy soul, O man, to the cosmic, and let it flow in as one with thy soul. Light is eternal, and darkness is fleeting. Seek ye ever, O man, for the light. Know ye that ever as light fills thy being, darkness for thee shall soon disappear. Open thy souls to the brothers of brightness, let them enter and fill thee with light. Fill up thy eyes to the light of the cosmos, keep thou ever thy face to the goal. Only by gaining the light of all wisdom art thou one with the infinite goal. Seek ye ever the oneness eternal, seek ever the light into one. Hear ye, O man, list to my voice, singing the song of light and of life. Throughout all space light is prevalent, encompassing all with its banner it flames. Seek ye forever in the veil of the darkness, somewhere ye shall surely find light. Hidden and buried, lost to man's knowledge, deep in the finite the infinite exists. Lost but existing, flowing through all things, living in all the infinite brain. In all space there is only one wisdom. Though seeming decided, it is one in the one. All that exists comes forth from the light, and the light comes forth from the all. Everything created is based upon order. Law rules the space where the infinite dwells. Forth from equilibrium came the great cycles, moving in harmony toward infinity's end. Know ye, O man, that far in the space-time, infinity itself shall pass into change. Hear ye and list to the voice of wisdom. Know that all is all evermore. Know that through time thou may pursue wisdom and find evermore light on the way. Know that through time thou may pursue wisdom and find evermore light on the way. Aye, thou shalt find that ever receding, thy goal shall elude thee from day until day. Long time ago in the halls of Amenti, I Thoth stood before the lords of the cycles. Mighty in their aspects of power, mighty they in the wisdom unveiled. Led by the dweller, first did I see them, but afterwards free I was of their presence, free to enter their conclave at will. Oft did I journey down the dark pathway unto the hall where the light ever glows. Learned I the master of cycles, wisdom brought from the cycles above. Manifest they in this cycle as guides of man to the knowledge of all. 7 are they, mighty in power, speaking these words through me to men. Time after time stood I before them, listening to words that came not with sound. Once they said unto me, O man, wouldst thou gain wisdom? Seek for it in the heart of the flame. Wouldst thou gain knowledge of power? Seek ye it in the heart of the flame. Would ye be one with the heart of the flame? Seek then within thine own hidden flame. Many the time spoke they to me, teaching me wisdom not of the world, showing me ever new paths to brightness, teaching me wisdom brought from above, giving knowledge of operation, learning of law, the order of all. Spoke to me again the 7, saying, From far beyond time are we, come, O man. Traveled we from beyond space-time, aye, from the place of infinity's end. When ye and all thy brethren were formless, formed forth we were from the order of all. Not as men are we, though once we too were as men. Out of the great void we were formed forth in order by law. For know ye that which is formed truly is formless, having form only to thine eyes. And again unto me spoke the 7, saying, Child of light, O Thoth, art thou, free to travel the bright paths upward, until at last all ones become one. Forth were we formed after our order, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Know ye that these are the number of cycles that we descend from unto man, each having here a duty to fulfill, each having here a force to control. Yet are we one with the soul of our cycle, yet are we two seeking a goal. Far beyond man's conception, infinity extends into a greater than all. There in a time that is yet on a time, we shall all become one, with a greater than all. Time and space are moving in circles. Know ye their law, and ye too shall be free. Aye, free shall ye be to move through the cycles, past the guardians that dwell at the door. Then to me spoke he of 9, saying, Eons and eons have I existed, knowing not life and tasting not death. For know ye, O man, that far in the future life and death shall be one with the all. each so perfected by balancing the other, that neither exists in the oneness of all. In men of this cycle the life force is rampant, but life in its growth becomes one with them all. Here I manifest in your cycle, but yet am I there in your future of time. Yet to me time exists not, for in my world time exists not, for formless are we. Life have we not, but yet have existence, fuller and greater and freer than thee. Man is a flame bound to a mountain, but we in our cycle shall ever be free. Know ye, O man, that when ye have progressed into the cycle that lengthens above, life itself will pass to the darkness, and only the essence of so shall remain. Then to me spoke the Lord of Eight, saying, All that ye know is but part of little. Not as yet have ye touched on the great. Far out in space were the light beings supreme. Came I into the light, formed was I also, but not as ye are. Body of light was my formless form formed. Know I not life, and know I not death. Yet master am I of all that exists. Seek ye to find the path through the barriers. Travel the road that leads to the light. Spoke again to me the Nine, saying, Seek ye to find the path to beyond. Not impossible is it to grow to a consciousness above. For when two have become one, and one has become the all, know ye the barrier has lifted, and ye are made free of the road. Grow thou from form to the formless, free may thou be of the road. Thus through ages I listened, learning the way to the all. Now lift I my thoughts to the all thing, list ye and hear when it calls. O light all-pervading, one with the all and all with one, flow thou to me through the channel. Enter thou so that I may be free. Make me one with the all-soul, shining from the blackness of night. Free let me be of all space-time, free from the veil of the night. I, a child of light, command, free from the darkness to be. Formless am I to the light soul, formless yet shining with light. Know I the bonds of the darkness must shatter and fall before light. Now give I this wisdom, free may ye be, O man, living in light and in brightness. Turn not thy face from the light. Thy soul dwells in realms of brightness, ye are a child of the light. Turn thy thoughts inward, not outward, find thou the light soul within. Know that thou art the master, all else is brought from within. Grow thou to realms of brightness, hold thou thy thoughts on the light. Know thou art one with the cosmos, a flame and a child of the light. Now to thee gave I warning, let not the thought turn away. Know that the brightness flows through thy body, for I turn not to the dark brothers, that come from the brothers of black, but keep thine eyes ever lifted, thy soul in tune with the light. Take ye this wisdom and heed it. List to my voice and obey. Follow the pathway to brightness, and thou shalt be one with the way.